So Marvel has been a powerhouse in the movie industry for, a decade, with hit after hit, seamlessly turning unknown actors and unknown characters into household names. But what if the Avengers were cast in the 80s? That's right, the lovely 80s, the birth year of me, your host. So join me in this grand adventure as we travel to the 80s. The 80s actors, that is, essentially. Avengers, assemble. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Nerd News, a show created for nerds by a nerd. And welcome to the new setup here. So I finally found a good place in my apartment to set up shop to bring you all the entertainment news, and I'm quite digging it. So Marvel. Okay, let's face it, there isn't really a bad Marvel movie, there's just some movies you like better than the others. With the Avengers leading the way in one of the best cinematic moments in comic book history to see the whole team together, the core six of the Avengers was a feast to behold. But seriously, how different would that movie feel and act and look if they were cast, if this movie was filmed in the 80s? Now, there are so many great actors of that time period, so many iconic legendary actors that are still acting to this day. I mean, the 80s had a slew of amazing hits, movies that made you feel good, movies that made you laugh, pretty much anything by John Hughes in the 80s, guys. But I wanted to do my casting for the Avengers in the 80s, and this is just something fun. It'd be really cool. If I could animate, I would totally animate all these actors in these roles, but I can't animate, so this is what you get. But before we dive into today's marvelous episode, that was stupid. If this is your first time here, I would greatly appreciate it if you hit that like, subscribe, the notification bell so that you could be notified of all things as I post them. Okay, so the way that this is gonna work, I'm gonna cast just the core six. The core six of the Avengers, not, down the line, maybe I'll do like, Rocket Raccoon or Thanos. No, we're just gonna do the original six. So I think we should begin this list with the Boy Scout himself. That's right, Steve Rogers, aka Captain America. Now, we all know Cap as the boy next door, the soldier that'll do anything for the man to his left, the man to his right. Heck, he even jumped on a grenade to save his team. I mean, that's amazing. So you need an actor who can have these elements of, hey, I'm the typical good old American boy next door. You can take me home to meet your mother because I'm that good. So I went through a slew of actors in the 80s, and I think I found the perfect Steve Rogers in that of Patrick Swayze. So Patrick Swayze, in real life, he has that Keanu Reeves feel where every good story you hear about that man is absolutely true. He is a good guy. I mean, you'd have to be a good guy because no one puts baby in the corner. Sorry, I had to do that joke. Saw it coming. Now in the 80s, Patrick Swayze was doing an action movie called Roadhouse. So he flexes action muscles, not to mention, speaking of Keanu Reeves, Point Break, which is one of my favorite movies ever because it is amazing. Then you shift gears when he also was in Dirty Dancing. Now he played the same kind of rough and tough character, but with this heart of gold. I mean, come on. You wanted to dance with him. Let's just face it. You wanted to do that lift. And I think Patrick Swayze suited up in the cap, red, white, and blue, the shield. I mean, maybe the costume during the 80s wouldn't be as, amazing as it is now, but still, he would fill out that suit. You would believe that he is Captain America. So I think Patrick Swayze is my guy. So Mr. Swayze, you are my Steve Rogers. Next up, I think we're gonna move on to the God of Thunder, and that of Thor. Okay, so we all know Thor, the cocky, arrogant god who is gonna take the throne from his father, and he learns, that being this arrogant, cocky, I'll take on anything type of feel, it's not gonna work as a king. And throughout Thor's character arc, he does start to realize what it takes to be a king. So you need an actor who, can physically be a demanding force, a unmovable object, a god. Not to actually be a god, that's impossible, but to have that characteristics to physically look like one, that's what I mean. Someone who is arrogant, someone who is just cocky, but also you feel bad for him when things go wrong, and you also are like, you know what, deep down inside, you're a good guy, Thor. So my casting choice for Thor is Dolph Lundgren. So at the time, Dolph Lundgren was filming a little movie called Rocky. I think it's called Rocky. I must break you. And also, he is no stranger to the MCU. He played the Punisher way back in the day, which, to be honest, he wasn't that bad of a Punisher. He also played He-Man in I'm just gonna say it, an awesome He-Man movie. And in that movie, he kind of had a little bit of a longer hair. He definitely has the build. He looked like Thor, just replaced the sword with meow meow. But he also flexes comedic muscles in things like the Expendables. I mean, he has that comedic range. But during that time period of the 80s, he was in his peak performance when it comes to his physical shape. He had the acting chops based off of the Punisher, kind of like deadpan, I'm gonna get stuff done, get out of my way type feel. He could just channel that, mixed a little bit of Rocky into that role, and you got the God of Thunder. So Dolph, my good man, you are my God of Thunder. So now we're gonna move from the God of Thunder to Black Widow. So we know Natasha Romanoff has a shady past. She has a really bloody past, or as she says, she has a lot of red in her ledger. She's beautiful, but she's also a trained killer. So you don't want to make her angry if you're dating her because she'll kill you. But she also has that charisma where she blends well with the team, and she has that really good chemistry with Hawkeye, because, you know, they had a relationship. So you need an actress who has that, like, quality of being really pretty, also being very dangerous, also has that kind of rough and tough, kind of like Charlize Theron's character in Mad Max. Furiosa. That's her name. I couldn't think of it. So my casting choice is Michelle Pfeiffer. Now, we all know in 1992 she portrayed the best version of Catwoman so far in Batman Returns. I mean, that character stole the movie, in my opinion. Not to mention Christopher Walken. Now, all her performances in the 80s carried this elegance, this danger to all of her characters. I mean, she would own that role and really understand the complexity that is Natasha's background. I mean, think of Catwoman's background. I mean, she took this really broken human being that is slinging a Kyle and kind of transformed her into this really just, you know what, I'm gonna take life by the whiskers. I mean, she would take that character into her own, take it to a new dimension, and I think she would do very well, even with the accent. I mean, let's face it, we needed a Natasha who has a Russian accent. I don't know why Scarlett Johansson didn't have one, but, you know, the 80s may have been a better time. And with that, Michelle Pfeiffer, you are my Black Widow. Now let's move on to the big green of the group, the Rage Monster, the Hulk / Bruce Banner. So talking about a complex character, the Hulk has an amalgamation of all these different complex just thoughts and emotions and just raging with himself that you need actors to convey both of those roles seemingly to, you know, mold into one. I mean, don't get me wrong, we had some really good actors portray the Hulk. Mark Ruffalo is my favorite, but during the 80s, I think there's only 2 actors that could possibly take this role on and own it. So my casting choice is Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno. So during the 80s, the Hulk TV show was in its prime. At that time, those are the only 2 actors that you actually saw and thought about being the Hulk and Bruce Banner. The show ran from 1977 to 1982. It had a good run, it had a good following, and it still holds up to this day. I mean, yes, I know the Hulk isn't CGI, it's Lou Ferrigno in paint, but you know what? It worked for the 80s, and I think it still could work. I mean, Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno understood each other. They had the chemistry, they understood their characters very well. The Hulk, well, Hulk smash, I know. But Bill Bixby, I definitely bought him as a scientist. He understood what it took to be a scientist, what it looked like. He got the dialogue right. I mean, he looked like a Bruce Banner. And when he changed and his eyes turned that green, it was creepy, even for the 80s. I mean, CGI, yet again, wasn't that huge in the 80s, but practical effects, there's some things you can't do with CGI that practical effects can do. You know what I mean? There's certain things. And I mean, come on, Lou Ferrigno, have you seen the man's physique? He literally is the Hulk. You do not want to mess with that man. Even to this day, he could break your neck like a walnut. So Bill and Lou, continue playing the roles that you were born to be. All right, guys, 2 more to go. Let's do it. So second to last, we got someone's favorite, Hawkeye. So I know that Hawkeye is one of the least favorite characters in this Core 6 team. I mean, he's had a couple of moments to shine here in the newer Avenger movies. I mean, when he turned Ronin, everyone liked him a little bit more because he was a little bit more edgy. But he had some awesome action sequences in the Avengers movie that kind of borderlined him with that. You know how cool Legolas was in Lord of the Rings, how some of those awesome fight scenes that he did where he like rode on his shield and, you know, those cool moments? He had that Legolas feel. Yeah, they both had bow and arrows. Yeah, you're right. But Hawkeye, like Cyclops, I think is an overlooked character, and I think he needs an actor who can actually take him to the foreground and make him stand out just a wee bit more. Just a wee bit more. So the actor that I'm casting as Hawkeye is Kevin Costner. So Kevin does have this boyish charm slash a little creepiness to him. Did you see Mr. Brooks? In 1991, he did play Robin Hood, so he did flex his acting muscles. I mean, it wasn't like a Jackie Chan movie, but he could do action. And don't forget, he also protected Whitney Houston in The Bodyguard, so he understands drama as well. I mean, he does a lot of good drama movies, let's be honest. Dances with Wolves, I mean, there's a slew of other movies. But in the 80s, Kevin Costner was on the top of his game. He was doing some really good movies, doing some really good things, and I think he could take the dramatic background that he has and apply it to this character who needed some more context, some more meat, some more gusto. And honestly, I think they could get away with the older costume with the H on the head, and you know, I think Kevin Costner could pull that off because he looks like the character in my mind. So Mr. Costner, you are my Hawkeye. If you cast it, they will come. And last on this list, but not last in our hearts, this man needs zero introduction. The millionaire, playboy philanthropist, Tony Stark. So what can I say about Tony Stark? There's a lot of words. So for Tony Stark, you need a legendary actor, an actor who can be that playboy, that philanthropist, the smart aleck type, James Dean cool type character. I mean, let's face it, Robert Downey Jr. is probably the only actor that could ever play this role. Sure, there's probably other actors that would be just as good, but you know, Robert just in our minds, and he'll always be in our minds. But this is casting in the 80s, so we gotta try. So that's why I'm selecting a legendary actor in his own right, and that of Mr. Burt Reynolds. So hear me out on this one. Burt Reynolds in the 80s was a powerhouse. He is the A-list of A-list actors. He was on top of the game. He was in everything. People wanted him to be in everything. He was the heartthrob. He was the rough guy. He was the entire package. And even when he's not on screen, his personal life was just as crazy and legendary as you would hope. I mean, during the 80s, he was filming Smokey and the Bandit, and did an adventure crime movie called Rough Cut. He also did Deliverance, which is a combination of action, thriller, and a smidge of horror. I mean, Burt Reynolds has that charisma that Tony needs, you know what I mean? And he does look like Tony. Give him the little goatee instead of his mustache that he has, and he's Tony Stark. I can definitely see Burt Reynolds doing the storyline of Demon and Ball, I think it's called, where Tony Stark battles his alcoholism while fighting crime. I mean, yeah, it doesn't sound like, you know, an Avengers type story, you know, they're fighting Ultron or they're fighting someone crazy, but I mean, that human element, Burt Reynolds could definitely play. And I can see him being all cranky in the suit and, you know what I mean? Burt Reynolds in his own right is a playboy philanthropist, you know what I mean? He is that living Tony Stark that I think could fill out this role. I mean, he just has that charisma, man. He has that legendary charisma that everyone wanted to be around during the 80s. So the late, great Burt Reynolds, whew, my man, you are my Tony Stark. Well, my friends, that is it for fan casting the Avengers in the 80s. I hope you enjoyed my list. I hope you agreed with my list. If not, let me know in the comments below. I want to know who you would cast as the original 6 Avengers. But thank you guys, and until next time, I'm going to give you one small bonus casting. You ready for this? 80s casting, Rocket Raccoon, Danny DeVito. You're welcome.